Hello, this is Mike from Urban Legends and Conspiracies. Welcome back to another segment of 5 Minute Mythologies. On this episode, we're heading to the Midwest where we're discussing a very fun topic, cow tipping. Yes, you heard that right, cow tipping. Now, you're probably thinking, Mike, you can't be that drunk already. Everybody knows cow tipping's not an urban legend. My cousin's brother's friend used to go cow tipping all the time with his buddies. It's a national pastime in America, like early 2000s barn raves and drinking so much of your parents' whiskey that you stole that you woke up in a field one day and you had no idea how you got there. So of course cow tipping's real. Well, first off, your cousin's brother's friend is a dirty liar. And who amongst us who grew up in a very rural area didn't wake up one day in the middle of a cow pasture after a night of binge drinking and then go around telling people that we were out cow tipping that night before? Yeah, we were dirty liars too. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's start at the very beginning, especially for those who have no idea what cow tipping is, because you either didn't grow up in a rural area or you never saw many of the funny 80s and 90s films where that was a gag. So cow tipping actually comes from this general myth about cows that they sleep standing up. And while cows when standing can enter a form of sleep, it's usually very light sleep, they actually, for the most part, would sleep lying down. But for the sake of the myth, the idea is that cows sleep standing up. And generally the story goes, a teen or a couple of teens, most of the time drunk, wander into Uncle Jeb's cow pasture, push him over very easily, it's all a big laugh, and then proceed to get into other teenage mischief before, inevitably passing out in a cornfield somewhere from being way too drunk. It's mostly seen or played off as a stereotype of rural teens who live in the middle of nowhere and they have literally nothing else to do for entertainment. Except for, like those early 2000s barn raves and getting wasted every night and bonfires and high school football games and, all the stuff that like normal real teens actually did. But for the sake of argument in the myth, there's actually really nothing to do in rural areas except to wander out into a cow pasture and tip a cow over as if that's funny for some reason. But that's basically the gist of it. It's basically a story that you tell your friends the next day to make it sound like you weren't just sitting in your house playing video games or pirating songs off of LimeWire or making a mix CD for that girl that you're too afraid to ask out. Or it's a tale we heard in school about somebody's brother's cousin's uncle's friend and their hooligan friends that actually went out and did it, whom we've already established are dirty liars. And to be honest, anybody who's actually ever attempted this probably either landed face down in the mud or ended up being kicked in the stomach by a very angry cow. For one, even when cows are in that kind of sleep state while they're standing, they're still very alert and active. And cows can be skittish. And to be honest, anyone who was dumb enough to try to sneak up on a cow in the middle of a pasture probably didn't have a good day after they attempted that. Also, not to mention the fact that modern cows on average weigh somewhere around 450 kilos. So you don't want to anger something like that and then have it charging at you. And even if you were able to get up beside it and try to push it over, a cow's natural instinct is going to be to resist. And it's estimated that with something that size, over 450 kilos, you would need to exert a force which is something like 3,000 newtons. And that's pretty much impossible to do for the average human. It might even be difficult to do for those dudes in those strongman contests. And if you attempted that, the result would most likely look like that scene in the film Tommy Boy, where Chris Farley is cow tipping, he's up under the cow, and due to basic physics, instead of pushing the cow over, he just pushes himself face down in what we can only hope is mud. However, due to the comedy in that movie, it's most likely what we think it is, not mud. And that kind of brings us full circle to that rural pastime of being face down in a cow pasture, wondering how the hell we got there. Now, this is a joke or a film gag that kind of started in the late 70s and has kind of stayed with us ever since. And it's one of the more fun little urban legends out there. And personally, I hope it's one that endures for a long, long time. And I think this is where we'll end it. This episode is dedicated to all of us who grew up in rural areas with nothing better to do but to tell wild, exaggerated stories about how we woke up in the middle of cow pastures after a night of, let's just say, not the best decisions. Once again, this is 5 Minute Mythologies with Mike. I thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode and in season 2 of Urban Legends and Conspiracies.